Most intermediate slide players tend to get stuck playing the same licks in just a few spots. They're what I call the hot spots, the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 12th frets. And these hot spots are fantastic. They're great stepping stones for newer slide players, but it's really easy to get stuck there. So in this lesson, I'll show you how to break free from these hot spots using the spaces between them to create some flowing phrases that really sound bluesy. Let's dig in. OpenG tuning gives us some obvious no-fail chord shapes at certain frets. These are the hot spots, and a lot of us just learn licks around those that might sound a little bit something like this. There's nothing at all wrong with licks like this. They sound great, and the hot spots really are a perfect place to build your chops early in your slide journey. And speaking of building chops, the techniques that we're going to cover today build on solid slide fundamentals. So if you need to shore up your basics, grab my free slide guitar quick start guide at the link in the description. It covers the essential movements you're going to need for everything that we do here today. But at some point, there's a problem. If these hot spots are all you know, your playing is just going to be limited, and you're going to miss out on licks that move up the neck and connect different positions. And after all, the slide is meant to move up and down the strings, right? Well, later I'm going to show you how to start connecting positions up the neck with longer slides. But first, let's make sure we know how to get all the blues we can from a single hot spot. Here's the thing about hot spots. Each position gives you a nice major chord across one fret, but you can add bluesy flavor just by dipping down on the 3rd string and on the 2nd string. Let's take a look. We could do this at any fret because the strings give us a major chord when we strum across all 6, but we're going to play around the 5th fret here, which is a C chord, and the root is on the 3rd string. That's a C note. That's how I know that this is a C chord. And we're just going to focus on strings 4, 3, and 2 for this example. For the first embellishment around this hot spot, we're going to dip down on the 2nd string by 1 fret. And the reason that this sounds nice and bluesy is because on the 2nd string at the 5th fret, so at our hot spot, we have the major 3rd. Dipping down by 1 fret gives us the minor 3rd. So we get into that game, that very bluesy thing of playing with the idea of major and minor. We blend those two ideas a lot in the blues. And another really bluesy note that we want to grab is by dipping down 2 frets on the 3rd string. So wherever we have the root, 2 frets down, we have the flat 7. A very bluesy note. And there's one more that I want to show you, and it is on the 2nd string as well, but it's going up a fret past the hot spot. That's our perfect 4th. If you know the minor pentatonic scale, you can see how we've got our root, minor 3rd, perfect 4th. We're going to skip the 5th, and then we can go down to that flat 7 and root there, right? The 5th is there, but we're just going to focus on these parts of the minor pentatonic scale. Put some really bluesy movement and embellishments on the table like that, especially when you use this technique of taking the minor 3rd and giving it a little blues bend. Now, we're not really bending since we're wearing a slide, but it sounds a lot like fretting and bending the string. And what we're really doing with the slide is playing over the fret, directly over the fret, so we get a good note, but then pushing the slide past the fret. We get the same sound, really. And the great place to do that is on the minor 3rd and on that flat 7. These small moves, to me, add so much character to your hot spot playing, but they can really be that stepping stone for brand new areas on the neck. And this is where you start to level up. Instead of staying locked into one position, we start climbing up into completely new territory. Let's move up to the 7th fret. And this is a D chord, and we know it's a D chord because we have the root on the 3rd string, and at the 7th fret, that's a D note, so D major. And we can absolutely do all of the hot spot embellishments that we picked up earlier. But what we're going to do is start getting out of this position, thinking about our root on the 3rd string, our major 3rd on the 2nd, 1 fret up from that gives us the perfect 4th. And we talked about that relative to the C chord. It's in the same spot relative to the root. But instead of going back down and kind of being pulled back to the hot spot here, we can use that fourth as sort of a connection point, a pathway up the neck. Come up 2 more frets, and we have another important note of the minor pentatonic scale, the perfect fifth. And if you know your minor pentatonic scale, you'll know that we've got the root, minor third, fourth, fifth, and there's just one missing. It's the flat 7. We can actually find that at the same fret, just shifting up to the first string. And if we want to complete this with the octave, that's up 2 frets. That relationship always exists. If you know where the flat 7 is, you can come up 2 frets to the root. If you know where the root is, you can drop down 2 frets, and you got the flat 7. That's what we did before when we dipped down on the 3rd string. We're just doing that here on the 1st string. So now we have this sort of stretched out pattern for the minor pentatonic scale. And we can combine this with everything that we've learned before, using those hotspot based embellishments and combining it with this path that gets us moving up the fretboard. The key is letting your root note be your guide. Once you know where your root note lives on different strings, you can escape pretty much any hotspot and find some really cool blues phrases. The cool thing is, though, we don't have to leave the hotspots behind. They still work great. They just shine a little bit brighter when we pair them with lines that take us beyond the hotspots. Let me show you what I mean in an example that brings everything we've talked about together into a 12-bar jam. Premium members, you're going to find a PDF, Guitar Pro, and interactive tab player for this lesson in the lesson library. Just look for lesson ID TB499. Earlier, we looked at embellishing those hot spots and connecting the phrases, but the thing is, there's one essential technique that really makes all of this possible in the first place. So watch Tuesday Blues 493 next, where I show you 3 foundational techniques that every slide player needs to master first. I'll see you there. Until then, practice smart and play on.